Hello, everyone, and welcome to this presentation. Access all areas, making accessibility more accessible. So who am I? My name is André, and I'm from Portugal. But I've moved to Belgium a couple of years ago to join Ipex to help them with product management. In this picture, I'm doing two things that I really love. Being a father of two, actually, and doing triathlons. I mean, although, if we're being honest, it has been some years since I've participated in a race. This picture will be 3 years old come May. And it's not just because I'm lazy. Well, part of it is, but it's also because of Corona, obviously. So iText, I promise I only have 2 slides about iText, about the company. So there's no kind of brainwash here. So just these 2 slides, bear with me. So, iText is a fast-growing technology company active in the digital document space. So we are perceived as a leader when it comes to PDF technology. Our flagship product is the open source PDF library, or SDK, to create and manipulate PDF documents. We started off in Java 20 years ago, last year. We're going to be 21 this year in February. But we've since added .NET and C#. So funny story there. I've been to some trade shows now. And of course, I asked developers visiting our booth if they'd ever heard of Ipex. Most of the times I get a positive answer, but also get some negative ones. Like, I've never heard of Ipex. To which I naturally ask, well, but have you ever needed to generate PDFs on any project? And if you have, which library have you used? And sometimes I get iText Sharp. And I'm like, so iText Sharp? Let that sink in. So, iText Sharp did become a very strong brand on our previous core version 5 that I'm kind of bummed that we dropped for our current version 7. But yeah, anyway, we have customers all over the world, open source and commercial. Oh, by the way, my colleague, Michael DeMay, is going to give a talk on the 29th here at the NDC London on how to transition closed source applications to open source. So be sure to check that out. It should be pretty interesting. So the iText 7 SDK includes iText 7 core that allows you to pretty much do anything. Let me put a pointer here. iText 7 core. You can do pretty much anything PDF related, and we are going to use iText 7 during this presentation for a little bit of PDF manipulation. And then we have several add-ons to add functionality on top of it. We have Calligraph to allow you to unlock advanced typography features. So think about rendering or reading Arabic, Thai language, Hebrew, etc. We have PDF sweep, which redacts information from a PDF document in a reliable and secure way. We have PDF HTML, which is a pretty good example because it started off as being closed source, and we since open sourced it, and that's how it gained a lot of traction. It's actually our most popular add-on, which allows you to create standards compliant PDFs that are accessible, searchable, and usable, just by using HTML and CSS. Jumping here to PDF to data, it was our first product that had non-developers directly using our products. It is a data extraction tool where you can visually create a template for the fields you want to extract. And then we have XKCD, a product which is our second foray into more business-like applications. And it is a document generator that simplifies the process of creating and maintaining data-driven forms and templates, just by using a visual template designer with a powerful backend for document generation. So Ditto is using Core and Calligraph and PDF HTML to do its bidding. Then we have PDF render, so that you can render PDFs as images. For instance, if you want to create thumbnails, or if you want to do a poor man's version of a PDF viewer, if you want to render a digitally signed PDF as an image, you can use it. And then finally, PDF OCR, our text recognition add-on that enables you to extract content from an image and make it accessible through a PDF. So accessible, right? Sounds like a really good way to segue into our next topic and why we're all here. So what is accessibility? Well, let's dive into why we're all here for, what is accessibility? I naturally pulled up a definition, as one does all of these days. It's like, let's show what's the definition in the dictionary. Let's just use it to kick off the conversation. But I pulled this definition from this research document called The Role of Accessibility in a Universal Web. And I would like to focus on this final sentence. Accessibility primarily refers to design for people with disabilities, right? This is the general perception that people have about accessibility. It's only for people with disabilities, whether they're sight or hearing impaired, or maybe they are colorblind, etc. One thing I would like you to take from this presentation today, though, is to shift your perception of accessibility a little bit, and maybe consider it a little bit like what universal design actually is, a way to make stuff available, any kind of stuff, any kind of content available in the widest possible range of situations. So I think that should about cover it, what accessibility is. So, the takeaway from this slide is don't just think about people, with physical disabilities when you think about this accessibility, but rather about making your content available in the widest possible range of situations. So in terms of accessibility and technology, for instance, there's a W3C effort. Well, I mean, maybe some of you haven't heard about the W3C before, but, I kind of doubt it, but just for the ones who don't, W3C stands for World Wide Web Consortium, and it has around 450 members. So it's pretty big, and basically it aims to develop web standards. So it's a super big deal. So I mean, see it as a governing body for web standards. Okay. So with that out of the way, about what W3C is, the W3C as an initiative where they define a set of guidelines and rules specific to how web content should be produced, so that it is, you guessed it, accessible. It's the WAI, the Web Accessibility Initiative. There's a very simple rule and idea as a web developer, if you think about accessibility, that should be top of mind. A really very simple example. So in a live setting, I would ask if you think about it. if you can think about one of these examples. So I don't know if someone wants to kind of venture with one example that you reckon the Web Accessibility Initiative has defined to improve accessibility on websites. No? All right, no problem. I got you. So I went to the NDC website and I tried to find one of these examples. Do you see anything wrong here? Well, at least from an accessibility perspective, exactly. I could see Danny mentioning the alt tags on images. So indeed, there's something amiss there. So images, you need to have a description for the images, an alternate description. But I mean, let's be honest, without wanting to sound unfair, many times we simply do not use these elements, like on this little snip, or we just write image one, because we can't really be bothered to write something useful. It does make it technically accessible and by the book, but it doesn't really make it consumable, does it? So the Web Accessibility Initiative is clearly an important step, but there are other initiatives and even laws to actually enforce accessibility. So you already have it up on the screen. So for instance, in the United States, they have the Section 508 of the US Rehabilitation Act. That identifies WCAG 2.0 level AA as its standard, among other requirements. And basically, it requires that electronic and information technology allow both federal employees and members of the public with disabilities to have access to and use of information and data comparable to the access to and use of information and data by those without the disabilities, right? So, they continue by saying, providing that it does not place a burden on the agency, etc. I mean, that was hard, but I mean, basically, what they, the message that they have here on the Rehabilitation Act is that everyone should have access to the information. Every single person. It's naturally their right. So this is where we start to steer away a little bit from the web world or the World Wide Web world, with the W3C consortium and whatnot, and dive a little bit into the PDF one, but always keeping in mind this accessibility and what it means. And why PDF? Well, it's what Ipex is all about. I would now make a joke on how Ipex paid for my plane ticket, hotel, and stuff. But I'm actually sitting about 15 minutes from work, so, Anyway, there's a specific ISO standard, kind of like we have these initiatives in the PDF world called PDF UA, where UA stands for, maybe someone can venture what UA would stand for. Otherwise, I'll just move forward. So UA, of course, stands for. So Denise coming through. Yes, universal accessibility, naturally, indeed. Okay, so there's an actual ISO specification that defines, what an accessible PDF document should look like. Well, more than look like, what information it should have. Okay. So interesting point here, and sorry to go on a tangent, but the Library of Congress in the US recommends PDFs as the best page-based digital file format for your content. So pretty cool stuff there. To be even more specific, they recommend PDF UA, which, like PowerPoint, it also has a set of tools to check for accessibility and whatnot. But think about it. The U.S. government with its 508 compliance, they have all of these recommendations. But then even the Library of Congress in the US, they recommend that PDF UA should be used as the best, page-based digital file format. And it's not by chance if you think about it, because, if you want to store something, you want, everyone to be able to access that information, not just today, but, further down the future. So, but for this talk, as I mentioned a couple of slides back, accessibility is not really limited to human beings with some sort of audio or visual impairment, right? We were talking about, just having content accessible in multiple ways. I mean, so what then? Well, we are now getting to the crux of this presentation. Something that machines really lack is that human touch. I would go as far as to say that they have a human impairment. Well, I mean, hopefully this isn't taken as a cue to assimilate humans or something like that. You hear me, AI? Well, we can never be too careful, I guess. Well, but what's the issue then? Well, not the issue, the challenge. The challenge is that we're more and more surrounded by technology that is ever so interactive and with a goal to assist us. Or if we're honest, to give us quicker access to cat videos. Am I right? Well, but how can we help technology help us? And I do mean all of us, no exceptions. I mean, again, this is about universal design. Remember? So you can see on the slide here, Alexa, right? The product from Amazon. You can interact with, you can talk with it, but it could be any other type of device that is able to relay information to you. It can even be your car stereo. It can be a tablet. It can be your phone. It can be a computer. It can be a smart headset. Whatever the case may be, we are flooded with ways to get information, right? So let's say we would ask, Alexa, or you'd ask your phone to read a document for you, because maybe you're being insomniac. It will go through it very easily. But if you have images, or let's say tables, or any kind of structural representation, it will struggle, right? It will fail to interpret context, because that's what we humans are really good at, context. So the challenge here, as we were saying, is that machines cannot really read. Machines lack context. At least in the human sense of it, they really lack it. They cannot read, or at least the technology does not yet allow them to do so in a similarly effective manner as we as humans can do. So they can help us, I think. Quid pro quo kind of thing. Well, a bit selfish, because I don't really know if machines get a kick out of it. Well, not today anyway. So I've brought an example. Oh, a tiny, the more you know nugget of information. Did you know, or do you know why this sentence, the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog? Do you know why this sentence is typically used to showcase fonts and whatnot. Does anyone know? Okay, so I'll just move forward. So basically, because the sentence uses all the letters, yeah, exactly, Denise, because this sentence uses all the letters in the English alphabet. Pretty cool, right? You know, go ahead, think of a letter, it will be there, okay? Y, okay, Y is there. D, D is there on jumped. You know, think of a letter and it's going to be in there, okay? So hopefully, you know, you've learned something from me today. At least why the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog is used so often. Anyway, I'm pretty sure in your mind you've already interpreted, you know, this sentence obviously as the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. I mean, instantly, right? At the snap of your fingers, automatically. Am I right? But how do you think, for instance, a screen reader would interpret it, you know, would read it back to you? So let's hear, for instance, how Adobe Acrobat would play or rather interpret this message. Okay, so I've loaded here just a PDF file with the same image as I have on the slides. And I'm just going to enable Adobe to read it out loud. And let's hear it.
The quick brown jumped over the lazy.
Okay, so hopefully you could hear it. We tried it before jumping into the presentation. And I'll just play it one more time.
The quick brown jumped over the lazy.
So if you could hear it, well, or rather, if you couldn't hear it, the way that Adobe read it was the quick brown jumped over the lazy. Okay, so in here, oh, okay, you could hear it, great. So in here, the person who created this content, well, actually it was me, guilty as charged, but obviously I wanted to make a point. So the person who created this content didn't even bother to add a description to those images. And this is a fairly standard and well-known sentence. Maybe if you were hearing it really slowly, you could pick up that something was amiss, but we really need to fix it. Then, yeah, I could actually, I could hear it myself, Denis. Thank you. But this is a situation that we need to fix, right? Because a very typical interpretation of this message would either be the quick brown jumped over the lazy, or the quick brown image 1 jumped over the lazy image 2. I mean, well, talk about lazy, am I right? But the issue is that technically, and I love, and I have friends that I know who love that the technically right is the best, you know, right. The problem is that technically the second sentence would make this message an accessible one. Or is it really? Well, I guess the good thing is that we are programmers. So it is super easy for us to add these descriptions when we are creating our code. We just have to remember to add these properties to our documents. On this slide, you can see a quick piece of code where you see how you can use Ipex to generate a PDF file with the message, the quick brown fox, with the the image of the fox, and with the alternate description, right? So you'd have, if we go back, it would create, let's say, this part as a PDF file. So the quick brown fox with the alternate description of the first image being set to Fox. Well, actually, if you want to, you can go to our demo lab and try it yourself. You can code on our website with our technology. So, feel free to give it a go and create a PDF document that can be correctly interpreted by a PDF reader. But having said that, we do have tools to check if a document is accessible. On the slide here, for instance, you can see the accessibility checker from PowerPoint. That it is pointing out that alternative text is missing, and so are slide titles and etc. But of course, I'm here for PDF specifically, although most of these concepts, of course, will be applicable to other rich text formats like HTML, Word documents, of course, PowerPoint, like I was showing here. So I'm going to show you really quick one such tool that is used in the PDF world to validate if a PDF file is accessible or not. Okay, so this is, it's just a free tool that the consortium built just to check the structure of a PDF file. Okay, so I'm just going to open really quick the PDF that I had Acrobat read back for you, right? So this PDF file. And you can see that it has multiple problems, right? It's already telling us that it's not UA compliant. But let's go through it really quick. So PDF syntax, obviously okay. I mean, we've used Ipex to create it. Fonts, fine as well. So fonts is actually very interesting because fonts need to be embedded within the document as per the PDF UA specification. So when I created the PDF, I already took care of that, as it is a bit outside the scope of this presentation. You may wonder why the fonts need to be embedded within the document. So this is to ensure that the document will always render exactly the same way, regardless of the PDF reader you are using, operating system, or how many centuries away from today you are opening the file. Our first fail is a natural language, meaning that we did not define the language we use to write our document. I mean, picture this. You just wrote a document in Portuguese. I'm from Portugal. And the screen reader thinks it was written in English. It will not sound pretty. I 100% guarantee you that. And then finally, alternate descriptions, which is a simple example we have been talking about these past slides. The images do not contain an alternate description. And we can see here if we open the results in detail, it will tell us, that this image is missing the alternative text. So kind of like, the alt that we typically see in HTML, like the alt property for the image tag. Okay. So, we can create documents that are easily consumable by machines, easy peasy. Let's just follow the guidelines as we are creating our documents, either programmatically or otherwise. There are tools that warn us if we are doing it right or not. It's so easy. But what if we don't? We're lazy. Developers are lazy. I'm one developer, so I can say it. It's not offensive. I mean, we copy paste a lot because, of course, our value, in my mind, is about putting things together. It's to make the puzzle work. It's not to really be bothered by the small details. But most importantly, what about all the content that is already out there? That's really the big question. Just in PDFs, there are more than 1 trillion documents indexed by Google alone. I would be willing to bet that less than 5% of those documents are accessible. Probably less than 1% even. And we're just talking about PDFs. What about all the other content? Accessibility-wise, there's this really dark web out there. So think about all of the, for instance, scientific content that it's locked away. It's inaccessible. So what can we do with all that backlog, all that information? Do we just go back and rewrite everything? Is it lost forever? Hopefully not. And that's why we're here for. I think we need to teach robots to assist robots, kind of a catch-21. Oh, by the way, if you do not know about XKCD, so this, this comic strip in here, this is XKCD. If you want to look it up, xkcd.com. But if you do not knew about them before this presentation, you can leave the presentation. You're not worth it. Well, I'm just kidding. Or am I? Well, anyway, what can we do then, right? We can already see here that there's already there are some hints as to what we can do. So here's my proposal, which is what we will be doing, let's say, during the rest of the presentation. Phase 1, we are going to use Azure Cognitive Services, AI services for the masses from Microsoft, specifically computer vision, to get our alternate description on our images. And we will use Translator to know what language our document is in. And of course, we'll use Ipex to pull everything together in our manipulation process by starting with a non-accessible PDF and hopefully come out the other side with an accessible one. Phase 2, well, who knows really, it's a live demo, so not really sure about this one. We'll see how things go. Phase 3, profit, of course, success. So let's do this. I'm using a trial account for some REST requests to the Microsoft Cognitive Services. So all good ingredients for a successful live demo. In any case, I will provide you with yet another QR code that will get you access to the code I will be showing or using during the demo. Okay, so let's jump really quick here to Writer. I, of course, already have a program set up. And we are going to use as the input file the PDF file that I was showing before, that again has this big issue.
The quick brown jumped over the lazy.
And it is not PDF UA compliant, okay? So, blah, 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 okay? So this is going to be our input file. And yeah, Alice, well, Alice is my daughter's name, so I got very creative. And then we are going to manipulate this PDF file and make it hopefully a correctly, a correct PDF UA, correctly PDF UA document. Had to read color. Oh, hard to read color scheme. Oh, okay. We can change that really quick. Theme, oh, appearance, yeah, sorry about that. Use the light one. Okay, hopefully that's better to read. All right. So sorry about that. Okay, so I mean, I'm not going to go through the whole, the whole project. because it has a lot of PDF specific stuff, and I would bore you. Okay, and I would bore you really, showing it. But as I said before, we have this on the Git repo, and we're going to share the repo anyway, so you can check it out. And the reason I'm not really kind of go line by line is that PDF is really hard. So I just opened this PDF file with this tool called RUPS, and it's really a very kind of PDFs are hard. Okay, it has a lot of information. So I'm not really going through all of this, but we're just going to try to change, the alternate description and the language. Okay, so I simply prepared things here. Let's put this set aside. So I just put a small piece of code that is going to set the alternate description to NDC London, and it's going to change the language of that alternate description to English. Okay, so really quick, I'm just going to run it. And anyway, like I said before, you're going to have access to the code anyway. So yeah, not really worth it to dilly-dally. I think it's fairly, it's fairly big to go over it right now. But yeah, so we just generated the PDF file. We've set as an alternate description all the images. Okay, we used iText to pull to check the images that we have present on the document structure. So let's open that output PDF file. Okay, so here it is. You can already see if I do the mouse over with the images that there's an alternate description over there. Okay, so let's play it back.
The quick brown NDC London jumped over the lazy NDC London.
All right, so it's working, right? Let's open the accessibility checker. Okay, so you can see that, where is it? The alternate descriptions, doesn't throw an error anymore. So we're only missing the natural language. That's an even easier problem to solve. We can just set the language for the document. So I'm not going to do it. What I will do though is just, as I mentioned on the presentation, we're going to use the Microsoft Translator service. So after checking out the project, you can check this class called Translator, but it's very, very basic. It just makes a REST request to the translator service, and then uses the first stab at what the language of the document is and pulls the language code, which is going to be English in our example. But in any case, if the result was empty, I was just using English anyway. But hopefully the Microsoft Translator service will work fine. And then here, similarly, we're going to use the computer vision service. And of course, you can come here to the computer vision class. It's pretty standard. And you'll notice that I set a breakpoint here because the story doesn't end here, and I want to discuss with you, okay? So I'm just going to close this document because otherwise I cannot write on top of it. It was just going to give me an error. And let's run in debug mode to see what Microsoft Vision has to give us. Okay. Hopefully it will work. Okay. Okay. So here we are. I guess here below, maybe it's too small what we got on the reply. So I'll focus here on the inline, variable content. So basically, the reply we got from Microsoft Vision, which is here on the content string, it's pretty useful. It gave us tags to describe the image, right? And this is the image. It's this fox, okay? And it's describing it fox, animal, mammal, orange. And then it has a caption, a fox standing on snow. That's, I would say it's pretty good, right? So what we're doing in the code, you'll see here, is we're using what's on the description, and we're using the first result, which is fox, okay? So let's continue with running the code, okay? And now it's going through the second image, okay? It's going through the second image, which is this image of this dog, right? But then the problem comes here. You'll notice that the tag, or the first tag that is suggested by Vision, is grass. And the second one is dog. Okay, so we're in a bit of a pickle here. So let's let it run. Okay, it's picking up here, that's fine. And then finally, we should have our new document. So let's open our output document. The quick brown fox. Okay, great. Let's just try and read it.
The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy grass.
Almost. So the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy grass. Okay. Okay, at least now it is a PDF compliant document because we've set the natural language with the translator service from Microsoft. So we set it generically to be English. The whole, the sentence that we have.
Jumped over the lazy.
Yeah, I know. Thanks, buddy. So both the text and the alternate, everything is tagged as English. Okay, so great. So great. We have a PDF UA compliant document. But it's not really grass, is it? Well, let's go back to it and think of if we have a better solution that we can use. So let's just run it again. Hopefully I don't run out of credits on my trial account with all of these runnings, but let's do it. So the fox, it's fine. A fox standing in snow, okay. There are a couple of places. And let's focus here on the dog. Okay, so, grass, not good. And the caption, I didn't go through it before. Let me zoom in a lot. It says a dog sitting in the grass. Okay, and he's not sitting, he's laying down, but it's already pretty good, I would say. So let's just jump back to the demo to discuss this a little bit. So we're not there yet, right? The dog kind of failed for us. We technically, we generated a PDF UA compliant document. The 508 compliance thing for the US. It would pass it would be a valid document. But we're clearly not there yet. It's not perfect. So what is the future? Well, you know this popular sentence, a picture is worth a thousand words, but do you really need them? What do you think is the right alternate description tag we should have applied here? You know, should it have been kind of the description, a brown and white dog lying on the grass, or just dog, or I guess just grass? You know, I mean, obviously not grass, but what about dog? You know, it's kind of you as a human, you would say dog, but how do you know? What's the right, how can we automate this? You know, it's also interesting that while I was preparing this presentation, Vision, so the Microsoft Azure service, did get the image right and described it as a dog. So, huzzah! But just by resizing it slightly so that it would have a more similar size to the fox, I could never get the dog back again. Which, to be honest, is fine. I'm happy that we could see that the technology isn't perfect and there's no silver bullet for this problem. I could have just used a different picture of a dog until I found one that would work perfectly for this presentation. But it is what it is. So a question to you, should we just play on the safe side and use a fuller description that will probably give us a better, more accurate description of what the image is? I mean, it does paint a better picture, no pun intended. So we would get a quick brown. So let me pull that the PDF file. So if we were to use the description, we would have gotten a quick brown fox standing on snow, jumped over a brown and white dog lying on the grass, which I guess would be a correct interpretation, but not really what we are looking for, is it? I mean, do you have any thoughts as to how we kind of, what's the problem here? You know, should we have used the description, like the full description? Should we just keep with a tag approach where we do our best effort to describe what we are seeing? Okay, we could continue the conversation in Slack if you want to think about it. Okay, there's a comment, I believe. So inclusive vision about is that here should be a property that the end user can choose what they prefer need. Yeah, I mean, I think of course that's a good approach. Is the list of tags interesting? Well, I would say that the list is interesting. Do I have it here? Yeah, so we have, you know, grass, dog, sitting, laying, brown, animal, mammal, white, and tan. Tan is pretty good. It's pretty interesting. Our AI overlords kind of fumble there. So is the list of tags interesting? Well, yeah, I don't know. Do you mean like we would put all of the tags on the kind of as an alternate description to the image, Joshua? Possibly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess we would have to check. Maybe like Denis was mentioning, maybe it would depend on who is consuming the document, or maybe it would depend on the type of document or on the audience. Maybe you want to get a sense of what the content is, or you want to be, really more specific about it. Maybe it's a scientific document, or maybe it's a children's book, you know? But like everything in life, it's all about compromise. And in this particular case, I think it's about context, really. Because context is everything. You know, and we can see from kind of your suggestions, you know, from the audience, I think context really is everything. As I was searching for examples for this presentation, other of course than the initial, you know, NDC, you know, HTML source code, I stumbled upon this tweet from Tesla, and I think it really fits what we're just discussing. So how would, let's say, Alexa or some other tool read this, you know, the original tweet, you know, this initial tweet? You know, it would probably go heart, 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 car, plug, heart, 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 heart. Well, you get the point, right? You've heard heart once, you've heard it many. So yeah, context, you know, I think is indeed everything. I do think we're getting there. We have the technology. Machine learning is great, but it still has this caveat. I mean, it's still evolving. We all drank the Kool-Aid. It's the next big thing and whatnot, but I don't think, you know, we're you know, it's always the final 5% or the final 10% that it is harder to achieve. But I think that with these tools from Microsoft and other vendors, and of course, you know, with iText, with PDF in particular, I think we can do the 90%, but we're missing the rest. So yeah, I'm not sure if you have any questions. What I would suggest for the sake of time is, of course, there's a channel. We can continue the discussion there. There's a lot of really intelligent people in there from, you know, from Ipex, from the company. So again, there's Michael DeMay, our head of research, that will give a talk on the 29th. And there's Raf Hans, who is our CTO. And obviously, both of them much more knowledgeable about PDF files than me. So feel free to come up. We can also post these links there, you know, specifically the Git repo, so that you can check out the project and play with it yourself. So thank you. Oh yeah, just a reminder, of course, there's a Star Wars Lego set up for grabs. So yeah, good luck, and thank you, everyone.